And I appreciate the fact that we can have this conversation today. I did want to give Mrs. Hernandez an opportunity to answer, if you could, just very briefly in 30 seconds or so, about the multi-generational benefit that your company's investments will have on local First Nations in Alberta's north.
I think you might be referring to me, Mrs. Herodens. Yes, absolutely. And that you're referring to our Project Rocket. And that, I have to tell you, the question that was asked was, why did we do that? We did that because it was the right thing to do. We did that because it was a fundamental part of our Indigenous reconciliation plan. And I can tell you that I was there in Calgary on the 30th of September 2022 when we announced that project, and I have never seen a more excited and proud group of employees that we had. But most importantly is, and we met recently, our Indigenous Advisory Committee was in to meet with our board a few weeks ago, and Justin Bork was there. He's part of that and spoke exactly to what you just said, the multi-generational impact this has. There was one of the chiefs who referred to having in the past a few $1,000s per member that he could spend, and that number changing to investing in his community to the tune of $100,000 per member that he could invest in his community. Just dramatic impact. Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that, and I'd like to ask Mr. Corson and Mr. Kruger the benefit of energy investment. I think is misunderstood by certainly the left-leaning political parties around this table, but in the communities that I represent, we have a small and medium-sized employers that work diligently, provide services to many of oil and gas companies. So I'm just wondering if you could briefly comment, Mr. Corson and Mr. Kruger, about how much your companies are investing in contractors that are essentially small and medium-sized enterprises that exist in the communities like which I represent. We'll start with Mr. Corson, like 20 seconds or so, and then Mr. Kruger.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I don't have any specific numbers on that, but it is critical for our company and our industry to deliver reliable energy supply to the communities that we depend on local contractors. We have our own large workforce, but we also employ significant numbers of contractors at probably more than double our workforce. And that is one of the key economic benefits.
And I hate to cut you off, but it's a short amount of time, so Mr. Kruger.
Yeah, let me be quick. We have 16,000 employees. On any given day, we have 28,000 contractors that work at our operations. The vast majority of them are local to where the operation is. So it's approaching a 2-for-1 ratio. So the contractor support and the money we spend in that is equal to or typically more than what we pay our own employees.
Wow. That's a lot of jobs that the Liberals, the NDP, and the Bloc Québécois want to shut down in the communities that I represent. We heard earlier some of the conversation around the regulatory regimes that exist. So I'd like to ask again, Mr. Corson and Mr. Kruger, is Canada leading the world in terms of the accountability for environmental activities related to the energy sector? As 5 seconds or so, just yes or no, ideally, Mr. Corson, and then Mr. Kruger.
I've worked all over the world, and Canada has some of the most stringent regulatory requirements of any place in the world, which is why when it comes to something like an emissions cap, I think it's unnecessary. There's plenty of other vehicles and requirements in place that create the necessary drives.
Does that predate the Liberals as well, just to be clear? Those strict regulations?
You know, I've only been a part of Imperial for a little bit of around 5 years, so I can't comment specifically on that.
So, Mr. Kruger, very, very quickly, if you could answer the same thing, these strong regulatory environments, and if that's something that Canada is known for, that including legacies that predate the current government.
We have high hurdles in Canada in terms of regulatory requirements, which is fine. One of the challenges we have is we're laying on regulatory requirement after requirement that brings about complexity and a burden. It's like playing hockey, but the net's moving.
Right.
The net keeps moving.
So if I could just wrap up in my last 15 seconds or so, I just want to say this. While the Liberals seem to want us to freeze in the dark and be poor, I think it's time to support an industry that actually can build our economy and provide the world the energy that we need, including at a lower emissions rate than our global counterparts. And it boggles my mind how Liberal and NDP and Bloc Québécois members of Parliament can sleep at night when they want to put my constituents out of work.